are half live. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good morning, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for the holiday to hit the reset button a little bit. I never understand why Thanksgiving week is supposed to be a vacation and then everybody crams as much work as possible into a 2-day span, but we've survived.
Nobody works in December. Nobody really works in December.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but we're here. We're giving you our typical Wednesday show, not live as you mentioned.
No, we're co-live. We're premiering. So you don't know if we're live or not. You have no idea.
I would hope our listeners are smart enough to tell them. If anyone sends like a super chat in or something, we're not going to be able to answer it. But typical Wednesday show, we're just taping it earlier, dropping it a little bit earlier than we typically be going live. It's going to be a great weekend of football, and we've dropped all of our previews. If you missed those, make sure you go check them out.
Indeed. We'll give our power rankings here today, our 1 through 10 power rankings. I'm sure Joe's going to yell at me like the great Irishman that he is. We'll also talk about our week 14 picks. Somebody's got an 8-game lead.
I've been doing some positioning in order to get myself in striking distance. So hopefully these upsets come to fruition.
But here's the problem. If they don't, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Very true. We'll also, Joe, at the end here, talk about the snubs that were and why the college football awards are broken.
Yeah, I was stunned to see some of these snubs. I thought that this was one of those years where it was total chalk, like where it was like, oh, these are 3 obvious candidates for each award, and we'll get to them later. I'm stunned. You tagged me in the Dylan Sampson thing. I'm like, what? The guy has over 20 rushing touchdowns. Who are we putting over him? And Marion Hampton getting it over him and Caleb Johnson getting it over him. It really is a 2-person race. It should be Dylan Sampson and Ashton Genty.
And I would here's the thing. The best running back in America this season has been Dylan Sampson, considering who he's gone up against. It's not as if that his production went down versus Georgia, Bama, etc.
Right.
His production went up. That's the part that I'm trying to like. I could see like if he just had 20 touchdowns and they were doing that against bad opponents. He has 6 rushing touchdowns against top 10 opponents. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing here?
That's the craziest part for him to not be a finalist. I still think Genty wins the award because they're only Boise State is only relevant because of him. He puts on a highlight every single time he touches the football, but
not against Wyoming.
He had a great game against Wyoming still. He still had over 150 yards or whatever he did, but Boise State played like shit, which is why I don't believe in Boise State as a viable, legitimate team that deserves to be in the playoff. But him bringing them to relevance, I think, is important for that general discussion.
I agree. I fully agree, but we'll talk about that as well here today. It does feel a little weird not to be live here. I got to admit.
Yeah, we're not getting yelled at like usual by listeners.
Oh, I'm the one that they yelled at last night.
I was surprised. I thought that we had a very aggressive SEC contingent. Not aggressive in the sense that like they're angry.
In. They're coming in. If you notice the comments from last night's show, they're coming in to defend your boy.
Which we support the debate. I'm glad that they're rolling in. But like I thought that our numbers were mostly SEC folks, and like all the comments from last night were Big Ten West Coasters that were agreeing with me.
Of course there is. But again, to the point, the argument still remains. Boise State, Arizona State, Indiana. Do those teams have a claim than the 3 lost teams that we listed in the SEC? That's more or less what we're really discussing about, right? So in case you missed it, we do have on our YouTube channel the our reaction to the college football playoff committee's rankings. I mean, Joe, I'm sorry. I just can't get through my mind that you're going to potentially give Arizona State or Boise a bye or in the playoff. And if I'm looking at Ole Miss, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, what are we – like, come on. The format is broken. It's not SEC bias. It's that the format's broken. There's no way in blue hell you can convince anybody with a pulse. Imagine aliens come down from space. and they say, Blake, Joe, teach us about college football. And we have to explain to them why Boise State gets a bye week before Ole Miss or any of these teams that are in. You get what I'm saying? Like it's come on. It's ludicrous.
Well, the Boise State thing, I definitely agree with you on. And
The Arizona State thing. I mean, like, come on. Like they have 2 losses to whomst.
Who did they lose to?
Tomato Can State and Tomato Can Tech.
What's the mascot for those teams?
Tomato Can.
Not a lot of creativity coming from the folks over at Tomato Can
I
Tech.
didn't make the logo. One's a green tomato, one's a red tomato.
Where do they stand in the power rankings amongst Rudy Poo State and what's the other one that you always say? Oh, Ash Cheek State and Dookie Water State. Yeah, where do they? Who's at the top of that power ranking?
Tomato Can State is starting to take a merge.
Okay.
I'm trying to get the, people are like, hey man, we get what you're saying, but can you take Dookie and can you take, Ass? Go with your number 1 in Rudy Poo. We'll stay with Rudy Poo, but go with something new here. All right. Let's get to it. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. When we come back, we give you our top 10 in power rankings. Stay with us.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
All right. Joe, it's the final week. You and I will be doing power rankings, isn't it? I mean, this has got to be the last week that we do power rankings. We probably won't do it after the.
No. Yeah, you're right. I'm saying like we won't do it leading up to the
Maybe conference championship week we'll do one, maybe, but I don't know. Regardless, this is either the last one or the second to last one that we'll be doing here. But Joe, your top 10 in your power rankings, who do you have?
Number 1, I've got Oregon. Number 2, Ohio State. 3, Georgia. 4, Texas. 5, Miami. 6, Notre Dame. 7, Penn State. 8, Tennessee. 9, Ole Miss, as much as it nauseates me to keep them in there. And I have to keep South Carolina behind them because they played one another. And I know that we're kind of factoring in, how are they playing at the current moment? It's still pretty notable to me that Ole Miss, when they were playing their best football, beat up on them that bad. 10 South Carolina, though, is my last in that spot.
Let me give you mine right quick, Joe. Oregon is number 1, Ohio State number 2, Georgia number 3, Texas number 4. If I'm not mistaken, I have Penn State. No, we switched it up here, but I have Penn State at 5, Miami at 6. I'm a little bit more bullish on you on South Carolina. Of course I am. I have been. I'm sure we'll discuss that, but 7, South Carolina, 8, Notre Dame, number 9, Ole Miss, and number 10, Indiana. Where do you want to go?
Oh, look at that. How did Indiana end up on yours and not on mine? How did that happen? What?
Because I forgot to put Tennessee in there.
I got to admit, I was being a little sneak. I was going to text you and be like, hey, do you mean to put Tennessee here at 10? But I had to do
that every time. I did it last week too.
I know. That was why I didn't text you and I didn't say anything because I wanted you to leave it on there.
Wait, because you text me, hey, can you give me your power rankings? And in my defense, Indiana shouldn't be up there. Tennessee should be up there.
Okay.
But in my defense, I was in the middle of a doctor's office having to do this. Okay, and send it to you. But take Indiana out and put Tennessee at.
All right. That's fair. I'm just giving you shit. Who do you want to start off with first here?
Listen. It doesn't. Well, you go. It doesn't matter to me. I don't really have a preference here. I mean, I've said all I needed to say, but I'll go with you, whatever flow that you want to go with here.
We don't have very many discrepancies Why don't we just kind of roll things first off with Ole Miss here? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people shaking their head at that and wondering, like, how the hell are you going to put Ole Miss where you've placed them after the loss that they just suffered? I'm not trying to prop up Florida too hard, but Florida is a hot team right now, and they're playing well, and they lost to them on the road. Ole Miss still has a number of good performances this year that I'm looking at what their best ball is. Their best ball is what they played against Georgia and how well they played. I think that if they squared off with a lot of these teams that would be in that 8, 9, 10, whatever slotting, 11, 12, 13, all those teams that could get brought up in the conversation, that they would win. But they're probably not getting into the playoff because they shit their pants last week. This isn't us projecting who gets into the playoff. It's projecting who do we think are some of the best teams. So that elite defensive line, the passing offense when it's operating at full clip, and if they actually ran the freaking ball, they would be one of the best offenses in the country. But Lane Kiffin gets in his own head. He steps in his own way. They belong there, but it's a little bit of an asterisk placing them where we have them.
I don't think it's an asterisk at all. I got to be real with you. There's teams that I have above them that I still think that Ole Miss would be on a neutral field.
Okay.
Or I would still take over them on a neutral field. Like, for example, Joe, Miami, we have them at 6. Okay. Both of us are 5 or 6, wherever we have them. I got to be real with you. I'd take Ole Miss over Miami right now. Now, it would scare me because of the Cam Ward factor, but they have not seen a defensive line like that. I know that Miami is going to give me explosive plays, right? Like, I know that defense, who, by the way, got a pick 6 last week and then had a kick return, a 100-yard kick return that was returned by Wake Forest. Wake Forest we're talking about here. By the way, too, they do have a common opponent. It's Wake Forest. One was on the road, the other was at home. And Ole Miss splattered Wake Forest in the beginning of the season. And Miami had some struggles early where Ole Miss didn't. Like, if you want to use power rankings and transitive properties in power rankings, then you can use Wake Forest. I don't necessarily do that. But if you told me today, a lot of these teams that are on here, if they faced off Ole Miss versus X team, I would probably still take Ole Miss above them.
They beat them by the same. I understand what you're trying to say, but like, I don't like the example that you use because Ole Miss beat Wake Forest 40-6. Miami beat Wake Forest 42-14. So there's a 6-point difference in
they had their second string
margin
quarterback
of victory
during halfway through the third quarter. It's a completely different game, brother. Completely different game. Ole Miss. They lined up with Simmons and ran the ball. That's literally all they did. They didn't even throw it, really.
I don't want to go. I don't want to jump down that rabbit hole.
I said it doesn't bother. Would you take Ole Miss over Miami on a neutral field right now? Because I would.
I don't think that I would because again, Lane Kiffin keeps doing this crap where I don't know which version of Ole Miss is going to show up. Is it the super locked? And this is the volatility of what we talk about with these portal heavy teams. I can't back a team that is so unpredictable on the performance that they're going to put out on the field. The Georgia version of them, beats Miami. The Florida version gets beat by 3 touchdowns. When you're playing, if they were facing off the way that they played against Florida and how shit they played on defense, how bad they struggled to run the football and try. That's how you need to win in a game against Miami. They have needed to win
Florida defensively.
Say it again.
They didn't play like shit against Florida defensively. They didn't.
They didn't play as good as they didn't play up to expectation. They didn't play up to the quality and the standard that we saw like they did against Georgia. But what I'm talking about here is to beat Miami, you have to run the ball a little bit. You can't get into a shootout with Miami when your receivers have been up and down and Trey Harris has been in and out of the lineup. I think Miami would win that game. I think that they would personally.
I saw a Georgia Tech team get after that offensive line, Joe. I did. I think Cam Ward's in trouble. I get what you're saying about the Florida game and, we blew out Florida. Yeah. That's also a common opponent that Miami.
Well, right. I was going to say, if we're going to pull up a common opponent, but
I can't, brother. I mean, like, I can't get past this in my mind that Ole Miss fell to two arguably bad teams. Miami won the games that they need to by luck in some instances. They needed a lot to come back against Cal in the second half. They had a Hail Mary that worked, then failed, then overturned against Virginia Tech. The wins don't mean too much to me in the sense of how those games ended. They don't. Miami has not changed their ways in their secondary. They haven't, Joe. If Wake Forest, if you're still getting lost in your secondary, it hasn't been fixed. Good luck. That's all I tell you.
I understand the secondary concerns still, and I think a lot of Miami fans do too. But I still believe, and I think this is where you and I perspectives are different on Miami, is that I believe what could be classified as luck to win the game against Virginia Tech, to win against Cal, to win these games that they were down and they had to, like Louisville is another good example of a game where they were close and then they just pulled away. Duke, another one. I quantify that for me as a team that has the ability to just turn it on like that, has the offensive production that when there's a limited amount of time that they are not out of a game, no matter what the score is. I feel like we saw, I don't know why this made me think of this, but like with the Georgia-Alabama game where Georgia was able to climb back in it, I could totally see in the playoff. Miami.
Did you just compare Alabama to Duke and Cal?
No. I did not compare those things. I'm just talking about that type of a comeback where Georgia like storms back and nobody thought that it was going to come in like an actual tough game setting. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Miami do this where first quarter, everyone's like, Miami's a bunch of frauds. They suck. They shouldn't have gotten a bye, blah, blah, blah. And then they storm back in the middle of the third quarter and the game is tight with whoever they're facing off with. They're that potent offensively. And they have one, like we talked about in the preseason, one of the best receiving cores out of any of these teams that's being projected in the playoff field. The only other team that I think has a better unit than them is Ohio State. Yeah.
All right. What if one of these other teams were having to scrape by the way that Miami is in some of these? I don't think Georgia. I don't think Ohio State. I don't think Penn State. I don't think a lot of these teams would get the same pass. I don't. Like I legitimately don't. So when I and you know how I know that? Because every single week I get Georgia versus Kentucky thrown in my face. Every week. And I'm like, brother.
Well, wait, but it's different the way that those outcomes happen. And I mean, like Penn State, the way that they played against Minnesota. I don't think that
there's a nice worth to come back from than a Hail Mary that worked, then had to be overturned. They lost until they didn't. So spare.
But it's not like that was a bad call though. That was the correct.
I didn't say it was.
I know. I'm just
call.
It was the correct call first of all before anyone throws that into the comments. But I'm also like focused in on here that there are plenty of other teams that had close losses against mid to low level teams in their conference.
Like whom?
Well, you just brought up Georgia has the game against Kentucky, Penn State's game against USC, against
Georgia that pass though, Joe.
But because it's a different type of performance where Carson Beck didn't play well, the offense couldn't convert on third down. That's different.
I also have Georgia going up against Texas and dog walking them. I don't have that. There's not one game on Miami's schedule that I could say that they dog walked a top 10 opponent.
Where I would push back on you saying that, like, if this happened for other teams, we wouldn't be sharing the same perspective.
We wouldn't.
Penn State is a good example of where they stormed back. They were down big at halftime or by a decent margin against USC, and they stormed back. They finished strong. They won the football game. I came on this show lauding them. I came on this show praising them and saying they stared adversity down, straight down on the road and said, you know what? We're not going to back down. We still think we deserve to be in the playoff mix. We're not going to lose this damn football game, and we're going to fight until we finish. And they did. Storming back and having a comeback to me is different than piddling around with a low-level team. I think that there's a separation in that level of performance.
Exactly what Miami did.
Yeah, that's what I'm comparing the two. I'm saying that Miami's done it, and I'm supporting Miami, and Penn State did it, and I'm supporting Penn State.
All right, let's move on here.
Okay.
I'm an idiot. I did not have Tennessee in my rankings again. I don't know why I keep doing that to Tennessee. To the Vol fans, I am sorry. I don't know why I keep doing that. I blame it on Joe. Maybe I think I do have Tennessee in there, and then Joe just keeps changing.
No, I got receipts. I have text receipts.
Okay. Joe, you know a team that sits in the catbird seat here right now is probably Tennessee. They were out of the playoffs last week. They're in the playoffs now. Your thoughts on the Volunteers going into last week versus Vandy and potentially a playoff spot here?
If I remember correctly, I still had them in my top 10, and I think that maybe I'm wrong there from last week, but Tennessee definitely benefits from the chaos that happened last week. They have a number of strong performances, and what boosts them up a ton is their defense. Their defensive line is freakishly deep. They can go toe-to-toe, I think, with any team. All 12. You know, all the teams that are projected to be national champions this year. If we're talking about Georgia, we're talking about Ohio State, we're talking about Oregon, they're good enough to impose their physicality on opposing teams. That's why they have to belong in the top 10. Now, why they aren't higher and why they have 2 losses on the year is because the offense has not lived up to our hopes, our dreams of what we thought that Heupel was going to be able to get out of Nico. There is a very sad reality here with Tennessee, especially with the last 5 games, how ridiculously unproductive they've been. There is a sad reality, and I'm not counting UTEP before anyone throws in there that we scored 50 points on UTEP. If a Tennessee fan says that, I don't want to hear it. There is a sad reality, though, that they could go out, play against Ohio State, and bust their ass, slow them down in the run game. And all it takes is just one offensive possession for Ohio State because their defense is good enough to completely rattle Nico. That's where I come from. They're imbalanced, but they're still elite in one category.
I don't like it when we talk about like a team doesn't meet our expectations of what their offense is supposed to look like. Then they come out and they run all over everybody. And then all of a sudden I'm supposed to sit here and say, oh, well, they're not as explosive as they want that they should have been. What else were we expecting from a true freshman quarterback?
Well, it was a redshirt
freshman quarterback. I mean, like, look, man, they run the ball effectively and they play really good defense. They got overwhelmed at Arkansas, but as soon as Arkansas happens, they get into a scrap fight with Florida just the same way that Ole Miss did, and they found a way to win it. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. They play Georgia, they get beat. Georgia's backs up against the wall. I felt like they came out, though, and, Joe, they were going toe-to-toe with Georgia in the first half. I mean, literally, the score was tied in the first half. I mean, in the second half, I know that Nico had some drops. They didn't finish. They couldn't complete. But Georgia was the one that came above them. Look, they've been tested. I know what I'm getting from Tennessee. I know what I'm getting from them. They're going to run the ball effectively. They're going to play good defense. They've gotten better statistically in every single category defensively. Every single thing that they've done has been better defensively this year. I think that's going to continue. Okay, I think that there's going to be a point in time. Like, Joe, you know what travels? Like, I keep hearing everybody saying, oh, what if Tennessee goes up to the Midwest and the cold? You know what travels? The run game and good defense. Always does. Always is going to travel. And I think that Tennessee is a difficult team to prepare for, especially if they can start hitting on some of these passing plays and they stop having the drops like they had, man.
Here's my only thing, though, and this is a line that you love to use with Penn State, with Notre Dame in particular, that both of those teams, very similar structure, good offensive line, stout on defense, they run the ball really well.
Here we go.
But they don't have the weapons on the outside. And right now, that is where I come from with Tennessee. I agree with you that, like, if they got into a grinded out, run the football type of a game, that they could keep it low scoring and they could find a way to win against most of the playoff field, like we've discussed here. But where it needs to be acknowledged, if we're going to have those same criticisms for Penn State and Notre Dame of they don't have weapons on the outside, we have to talk about this with Tennessee because their receiver production, there's been highlights. There's been some really big plays, but there has not been consistency. There's not been consistent separation. And Nico is not playing well enough to set up his guys to then succeed if they are getting open. So if we have fears for some of these Midwest teams, I think the same should apply here for Tennessee.
To counteract that, Penn State literally did that against Ohio State. Tennessee literally did it against Bama. Notre Dame couldn't do it against NIU.
Oh,
they couldn't. I've seen Penn State tested. I've seen Tennessee tested.
This is all right. This is going to roll into a Notre Dame conversation then.
It is, because it's the team that I want to go to next. Notre Dame, your thoughts on where we have them power rated. I know that you're going to be mad at me here because I have them at 8 and you have them at 6, but go right on ahead. Your thoughts on Notre Dame.
Look, I gotta bring this up and address this first. The most frustrating thing that I have when I talk to you about Notre Dame is that you love to bring up NIU, and it's justifiable because it is a horrible loss. It is a black eye on what has been a quality season for them. Not an elite season. They don't have like crazy big wins this year, obviously, but it's been a quality season. If they beat an NIU and they just blew them out and then we moved on, our perspective would be different, but I'm sure that we would still find ways to pick them apart. It's frustrating for me that you bring up the NIU loss being week 2, and then when I try to bring up the performance against Texas A&M in week 1, you say that was in week 1. Both things happen in back-to-back weeks. Can we not acknowledge
they even each other out? Did they not?
They do, but let me finish what I was saying.
One's a little bit worse than the other.
If we can talk about a number of these teams in the playoff ranking, in our power rankings, as being hot and having really good finishes to the year, Notre Dame has been doing that. They haven't played tough opponents. I freaking get that. But they are in a position where they have blown out every single team that they have faced. It's not even close. Just like we can say that we don't know if they're good enough.
Wouldn't blow out the teams on Notre Dame's schedule?
They would. What I'm just trying to say here is that just like if we're going to criticize Notre Dame and we're going to say they haven't been tested in the second half of the season, we don't know if they're competitive enough or good enough to go toe-to-toe with the playoff team. I would argue the inverse. They obviously don't have those test situations, but how do we not know that they wouldn't play well? Because I see a lot of good football. I see a lot of good athletes.
Can I tell you why? Because you faced a 6-win Louisville team and you won by 7. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2,
part of that was garbage time points, but
I don't care. You can make justifications for everybody else besides Notre Dame. Everybody wants to point at me to the Georgia Tech win. Haynes King did not play. He didn't play.
I hope nobody's bringing up the Georgia Tech win because it's not an impressive
go
win.
Look on my comments when I talk about teams against the SEC. Haynes King did not play. He comes back the next week and they beat Miami. It's the worst thing that could have happened to Notre Dame. Like, what would have really happened in that game if Haynes King at home plays?
They still
hold on.
Would have beaten him.
Maybe they would have. But we thought coming into Miami would have beat Georgia Tech too, and they didn't. So we can assume and make assumptions. We don't know because Haynes King, when they're running the football, we don't know that. You're talking about blowouts. A 1-9 Florida State team, a 2-9 Florida State team, a 1-10 Purdue team. Joe, those are their massive blowouts. Those are the ones that you're talking to me about. A team that in 24 games has 3 wins. You want to do that?
I've never argued that those are like impressive wins.
But
not what I've said.
They're blowing teams out. Well, I hope they blow out teams that combine for 3 wins in 24 games.
We have seen plenty of situations this year where games have been closer than expected and teams have played like shit. I have argued every single week that Notre Dame needed to leave no doubt, and they have done that. They have accomplished that. That's all that they could do.
Leave no doubt against Louisville. I got more questions now about Louisville.
That game, if I can pull up the box score.
Please do.
Louisville scored 10 points. Notre Dame was up in the second. At the end of the half, they were up 24-14. Nobody scored in the third quarter. And like I said, they were late points that Louisville put on the board.
Okay, here's my problem. You ready?
What?
I saw a Louisville team hold them to 117 yards rushing. I know that there are teams up in my power rankings that are above that would do worse to them. Like, for example, Ole Miss on a neutral field. If you can't run the ball for more than 117 yards against Louisville, I know you're not going to get that against Ole Miss or Tennessee. I know that you're not. You know and I know. And when you're forcing to make Riley Leonard, a dude that's got to sit in the pocket and throw, Joey's got 163 passing yards. Want to know why that game's close? Let's call a spade a spade. Why is that game close?
Because Louisville has a better team than you want to give them credit for?
No. Because when you needed situations on third down and you had to throw the football, you couldn't.
I think you're underselling Louisville's run defense because, first of all, they're 49th in the country in run defense. Not a great number, but a good number. Louisville has...
So, again, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Indiana, and all these other teams are in the top 10. Now what?
I'm not going to look. I think that
so the 50th ranked rushing defense is equivalent to what we've seen from Ole Miss. Good comparison.
No. Stop. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to illustrate here that and when we talked about leading into that game, that Louisville does have productive quality athletes along their defensive line. They've got three guys that are going to get NFL looks in this upcoming draft or in the following draft. They have
five guys in the front seven of Ole Miss that are going to get looks.
I get that. Well, it's a damn shame they're not going to get to play Ole Miss because Ole Miss isn't going to be in the playoff.
Because
so we're not going to find this out.
If Notre Dame would play Ole Miss's schedule with here's what you nor anybody on the Notre Dame fandom or is willing to admit. There is going to be a team, regardless of where you get labeled in the playoff. This is the problem that I have with him. And because of the whole Brian Kelly thing, I get labeled, he hates Notre Dame. He doesn't like Notre Dame. No, here's the God's honest truth. I swear to you, there is no hater bias. I don't know what happens when you can't run the football and you got to put this game on your quarterback's shoulders. I don't. Well, I've seen everybody else in my top 10 tested more than you. Everybody.
Wait. This is where I get frustrated. The conversation that we just had about Tennessee applies here. When they haven't been able to run the ball as effectively and Nico wasn't playing well, they lost.
Alabama and Georgia, who they ran on, is very different than Louisville and Tomato Can State. Sorry, it is.
Wait, no. What you're asking for is, what would Notre Dame do in that situation? What Tennessee did is exactly probably what would maybe happen to Notre Dame in those situations. Like what? But you're trying to, no. Here's my problem though, is that you're trying to act like Notre Dame would walk out there and they get blown out because they wouldn't be able to run the ball. That's the way that you're talking. Way that you're framing this is making it seem like it.
No, that's bullshit. Y'all are defending it. I have you in my top 10. But if I'm going to have Tennessee above Notre Dame, why do I have Tennessee above Notre Dame? Why?
I don't know. I don't think that they're justified in being over Notre Dame.
They 1,000% get justified over it because they have more wins against top 25 opponents. They've done it on the road. I saw them go toe-to-toe with Georgia and them hang around and be tied at the half.
They got smoked in the second half.
They got beat by 2 touchdowns. You got beat by NIU by 2 points.
Oh my God.
It's not the same, Joseph.
Obviously, it's not the same. No one has ever argued that Notre Dame losing NIU is the same as losing to Georgia. No one's on crack doing this show.
Bro, okay. Listen to me and listen to me clear. I promise you this as God is my witness. There's going to be a team ranked 5 through 11 that you're going to have to face. And you better pray to God it's one of the Rudy Poo teams that they just allowed to get in. You better pray to God.
The same thing applies for Penn State and it applies for Tennessee. that
I
have
saw
plenty of
Penn State
issues.
on the 1 yard line against the number 2 team that you have.
That would be my argument that Notre Dame could play a team like Ohio State close because there is not that much of a separation in general talent between those two teams.
You keep throwing out Penn State like Penn State's been tested more than anybody else in here too. They've had one game against a ranked opponent. One.
And they played great in that game.
Yeah. Now for some of these other teams, imagine playing in the last 7 games that you have 5 ranked opponents. Attrition wears. Injuries come involved here because you're playing better teams. That's the point that I'm trying to make here.
Well, if anything, you just made an argument here that Notre Dame has a better opportunity to play good football because all of these other teams, they're getting battered. Notre Dame should be relatively fresh. They don't have to play in their conference championship game. That should set them up even better.
They're not in a conference. The reason you can't get a top 4 seed is because you're not in a conference. And you don't deserve to have a top 4 seed because you're not in a conference.
That's never been argued. That hasn't been argued.
No, it's been argued. It's been argued. But you can't look at this and tell me it's the same. You're mad at me because I got him at 8. By the way, you got him at 6.
Wait. Here again, this is where we keep getting lost and we keep going astray. The words "it's the same" has not come out of my mouth in terms of comparing their schedules.
Okay, so then why are you mad at me when I have a team that's proven more above a team that hasn't proven it? Why are you mad at me?
Because
explain to me the thought process of why I have a team favored a little bit more than Notre Dame because one team proved it more than the other. Please.
The description and the depiction, the way that you have framed this, is that there is a separation gap between Notre Dame and a team like Tennessee.
There is.
I have more instances for Tennessee where their offense has completely sputtered this season, and it cost them in 2 of their games. I actually have context that when Tennessee goes up against a team like Georgia on the road, they're not built for a matchup like that. So why am I so eager?
They were tied at the half.
They still lost by multiple scores. They didn't move the ball in the second half. Why would I be so eager to put in a team that I actually watched play in a game like that against a top team that's probably going to end up with a bye when it's all said and done? Why am I so eager to put them in when I know that they couldn't get it done?
You're the softest fan base I've ever met in my life.
No, we're not. We're just trying to fight for
this is what's going to happen. This is what probably is going to happen. God forbid, Georgia loses the SEC championship game and they're in the playoff and you got to face them. Good luck.
Yeah, I don't think we beat Georgia. They're just like with any playoff, there are matchups that are good and bad for a team. I think Notre Dame beats Tennessee.
They're a flawed team if they have 3 losses. That's what you're telling me about 3-loss SEC teams.
Wait, it's not that cut and dry just to say like, well, this team's flawed, so that certain matchups are more beneficial for certain teams. We both know that.
Oh,
Notre Dame can't. Notre Dame.
It's funny how that works when it considers Notre Dame.
It applies for everybody. Applies for everybody.
Nobody in the country gets to dictate their schedule more than Notre Dame. No one. From week 1 to week 15 or week 0 to week 14, 15. Nobody. You chose to do this. You chose to have an easy path. Some of these teams don't get to choose an easy path. And the bottom line remains for me with Tennessee. It's not. Tennessee faces NC State. Well, they put that game together 5 years ago.
First of all, Notre Dame doesn't choose the ACC opponents that they play. They have a scheduling agreement with the ACC, so whatever crop of ACC teams that they're dished,
so what about
they have to play them.
7 games that you do?
The other 7 games, Notre Dame this is an off year. They typically are aggressive in order to fight these arguments that SEC folks put out there in scheduling top-tier teams and above average teams.
How can I say that you played a soft-ass schedule, you agree, and then you label me as an SEC folk when you said the same damn thing?
But the way that you just led in that point was making it seem like Notre Dame is deliberately every single year going to schedule easy. They just scheduled Texas and Bama in the next 5 years.
And they're not going to win either one of those games. They're not. They're not ready.
In 5 years, you can say that with certainty.
Yeah, I can say with 1,000% certainty.
God. Okay.
Here's what I will tell you. If all bullshit is aside, okay, because there is a caricature that comes into this. All bullshit aside, there's going to be a team that you can't run on, and I just don't. There's no way Riley Leonard's going to lead you to win. That's the God's honest truth, and I think deep down you know that I'm telling you the truth. All right, You want to get Joe?
I don't like when you throw that last part in there because deep down, no, I don't agree with that. No matter what, no matter how deep I dig,
hold on.
Still not in agreement with the take.
We gotta get moving because I got a show right after we
go to
Hold on. Let me just ask you a question. If you ask Riley Leonard to throw the ball 30 to 35 times, are you confident against these teams in the top 12?
That's a leading question. I'm never going to ask him to do that because it's not his strong suit.
You will ask him to do that if you get in a situation where you can't run the football.
Okay, so
I promise you, when you face some of these teams with better defenses than you face, you're going to get bent over and you're going to get doggy styled.
Let's go to game picks.
Okay. What, you didn't like my doggy style analogy?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Week 14 picks are
I did my math wrong. Wait, did I do my math wrong? Yeah, I did my fucking math wrong again. Because I'm supposed to be 90 and 40.
No, you're supposed to be 89 and 41.
I'm shit at making these graphics. 89 and 40. Okay, so I'm down 8.
Okay, here's the thing. You need to stop. I'm going to start. Okay, so you're 89 and 41 right now.
And it's not like I'm helping myself. I've dug myself into a bigger hole by messing up the math on this.
Okay, I'm going to start keeping tally on all of these because I don't trust you.
The problem was I accidentally forgot to update and fix the score from last week, and I updated it.
Okay.
Like I forgot that I messed up the graphic last week, so this has been a snowball.
Yeah,
you're right. Go ahead.
Your boy is 97 and 33. Joe is 89 and 41 on the season. Let's get to game picks here. I see that you changed your pick. You're going in the first game here, Texas and Texas A&M. I'm going with Texas. You're going with Texas A&M.
Yeah, I got to get back in this, and I was going to take Texas. I think that actually this one, I think that there's a shot that Texas A&M wins this. I have them covering.
I do too.
5.5 point spread on Bet Online. I think that Texas A&M is at the very least going to cover at home at night in the SEC. I keep coming back to it. It is so freaking important.
Here's the thing for me. I had a buddy that covered Texas A&M. And yesterday, when I was making this pick, I was going to go with Texas A&M at home. And then he sent me Texas A&M's record in the month of November in the SEC.
Awful.
And it's 30%. And you know what? I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. A&M's going to A&M themselves always. Give me the Longhorn tier, even with a banged-up Quinn Ewers, even though I don't trust it. Joe, Ohio State and Michigan here. Both of us going with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ohio State. I think that they're also going to cover the 20.5 point spread. They're pissed off. Ryan Day is talking about how this is literally causing turmoil for his family. So they need to win it.
See that, by the way? How crazy was that?
He is intense, and I think he's going to just unload on them.
Yeah, man. I mean, listening to Ryan Day this week, he said it was other than somebody passing away. Losing to Michigan has been the worst thing of his life because of everything that happens with him and his family. First off, that is insane.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a man. He's a human being. So what? He uses Rogaine on his beer. My wife makes me do it when we're going to take family pictures. Okay. Nevertheless, all right. I think that they're this. I'm going to put a hot take out there. I think they're the best team in the country.
They're playing like it. They're
certainly playing like it. I think that they're the best team in the country. It's not going to stop this week versus Michigan. Joe, Notre Dame and USC, both of us going with the Fighting Irish.
Notre Dame's got to be locked in. They cannot dick around with USC. USC has played spoiler for them many times in the long history of this rivalry. But I think that with the defensive deficiencies that USC has, that Notre Dame is going to be able to win this. And easily.
I just think Lincoln and his team is ironically on a rebuild. Look, they've flipped some kids. I think that they're doing some things behind the scenes defensively. Here's the truth, man. They're better in every statistical area. Every one of them. There's not one. This team plays hard for Lincoln. I'll give him that. They do. And I think that you're right. You can't go into LA and start playing around. You can't mess around with this team. So I think that they're going to be able to run the football late. Depth's going to be an issue, and they're going to be able to win it here. All right. Oregon and Washington, both of us going with the Ducks.
Yeah, no reason to believe that Oregon's not going to win this. They get the game at home, and also if we're just talking about grudges, it applies for a lot of these games. Dan Lanning's probably pissed about the last 2 games last year. They need this one back. They need to continue to push towards a national championship run. This is just another quick step on the way there.
Excuse me, kids have completely made your boy sick this week. I ditto everything that you said. I think Dan Lanning, like the song from Fall Out Boys, now we're going to light them up. We're on fire. I think they're going to light up Washington this weekend. Joe, a very interesting game. I think it's the biggest game of the weekend, ironically, for what it means for the playoff. Boy, you've gone full scale picking. Oh, my God.
I have to. So, South Carolina fans, first of all, I'm picking you guys. You heard me in the preview. I'm picking you guys. But I got to get back in this. The games that have close lines on Bet Online, I'm just going with the dog, or not the dog, but the opposite of whatever Blake's taking.
For you. This is the week either you get back into things or you completely fall out of it.
F it, we ball, man. There's nothing else that we can do.
When you're going with Clemson, I'm going with South Carolina.
Yeah, physicality up front for South Carolina is going to win them the game. I don't know, I do know. I don't trust Klubnik against that pressure, and I do not trust that run defense that got ran over by a freshman running back by Louisville, that they're going to be able to stop Raheem Sanders.
Clemson's always in every football game. You want to know why?
Why?
Jesus. But I'm going with South Carolina. Bama and Auburn, the Iron Bowl. You're going with Auburn. I am going with the Crimson Tide here.
Yeah, Bama fans, again, you're winning the game. You're going to win the game. But if there's some batshit stuff this week, maybe Auburn pulls it off. I don't know. Praying that we can get back in this damn thing, that we can.
One thing that's interesting
make up some ground
is that Bama's been bad against the run. I warned them.
That's fair. That's why I'm willing to take this one.
Well, I warned them in the preseason. Remember the outright complete hate I took against this. I said, look, your front seven's not good enough. They're 62nd in the country in run defense. Auburn can run the football. If they don't turn it over, the Iron Bowl is going to be a game, man. I promise you. I think they're hitting it on all cylinders. By the way, I want to throw this out there. Did you see Hugh Freeze this week?
I did. I saw some of the comments.
Boy, what you want to talk about culture being built.
Yeah.
Ooh-wee, that was some good shit from Auburn. Tennessee and Vandy.
I told you. I am desperate.
Commodores, I'm going with the Vols.
Tennessee's going to win the game, but if Pavi is healthy enough to play well,
he's not healthy.
Who the hell knows? Who knows? Maybe something happens. I hate that I'm desperate like this. I'm going to have to next week. I'm going to have to pick the opposite of everything that I want for the championship round. But yeah, let's pray that Vandy does it.
They're not going to do it. Pavia being banged up is really hurting them right now. I mean, LSU was able to get after them. If LSU can do it, so can Tennessee. Ole Miss and Mississippi State. We're both going with the Rebels here, Joe.
I almost did some dumb shit and put Mississippi State down, but I'm not going to do it.
You got to win some of them here.
I can't dig. I can't just be crazy, because then I'm digging myself a hole. Going head to head with you here. Yeah, Ole Miss just has too much firepower. If we were maybe doing like spreads, maybe I would take Mississippi State, but no, Ole Miss pissed off after last week. They're going to win.
Well, the way that I see it is if College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff get to just do pick'ems, why don't we?
That's a good point.
So they get to look like geniuses. So do we. All right. Georgia and Georgia Tech, both of us going with the dogs here, Joe, but I do think this one's going to be a little close early. Georgia Tech's a tough football team, and Brent Key has a very, very disciplined football team.
Assuming that Philo's playing, I think that the attrition of that defensive line for Georgia is going to start to really run them down. They don't have the quality of athlete to finish off this game, but they have the discipline to keep it close.
I agree. And listen, Georgia's played around in some of these. Now, this might be different in a rivalry game. I don't know, but they played around a little too much for me. But look, man, I like this, Robert. I like this Brent Key team, man. Georgia fans have nothing to worry about, in my opinion. But look, man, they're a tough football team. They don't have the talent that you do. They're coached well. They play hard. And anytime that you have a team that's that disciplined and wants to play hard, it can be hard to stop sometimes. All right, the last one here, Iowa State and Kansas State. I'm going with the Cyclones, and you're going with the rare Wildcats.
Yeah, just kind of a flip of a coin here. I do think that Kansas State's the better team, though. This is one I actually feel pretty good about, going opposite of you. Run game takes over. Avery Johnson has a good game on the ground. DJ Giddens gets going. Iowa State's been a little fraudulent, especially the past couple of weeks. So give me the Cats.
I just don't trust Avery Johnson. I don't.
What else is new?
You killed me in the beginning of the year when I said I don't think the kid can throw. If you, oh my God! I just came up with a great analogy.
Oh no!
Riley Leonard is the Coca-Cola version of Avery Johnson.
Or he's just the older version.
They can't throw. Here's the truth. This is what I did for this game. You ready? All right, heads. I'm going with Iowa State.
Yeah, who knows with the Big 12? It's a total guess.
No clue. Pick somebody. I don't care. All right, Joe. Before we wrap up here, we need to get to this. So the award finalists came out this week. You know, the Thorpe and the Doak Walker and the Maxwell. Huh. Joe, there were some snubs this week that need to be addressed. Now, let me start it off with this. Every single year, you and I, when we start off the show here, we talk about the AP poll. And our good buddy Josh Pate came on this show and he said, the AP poll sponsored by drug use. Well, the same people that vote on these awards are the same dumbasses that vote in the AP poll. The simple fact that, and I'll start off here, that Dylan Sampson is not on the Doak Walker Award finalist list. People need to have their credentials on awards finalist pulled. They have to. You know what I would like? Why don't we let the fans decide? Why are we letting bias?
I don't like that because
Joe,
markets with more people are going to out.
Okay, well that's fair. That's fair.
It's like with the Pro. I don't mean to cut you. Wait one second. I don't mean to cut you off. It's like with the Pro Bowl where like the bigger markets have more representation just naturally. But that's the kind of just the qualifier.
That's fine. But it would be better than what we're doing right now. Joe, I cover a team personally, but other than doing this, I promise you that the people that go to those games and have to get their AP poll voted in by at 9 a.m., they're not watching all of these games. They don't know what they're talking about. And then guys like Dylan Sampson don't get the benefit of the doubt. Why he doesn't, I have no idea. He's their offense.
The biggest problem with all this, and one thing you just brought up there, voting for all of these awards should not have regional representatives. Because like what you just said, most of the time they're traveling to the games. They're on the sidelines for these games. They're in the press box, and they're covering singular games. It's not plausible to cover multiple when your job is to I need to be at the press conference to hear from Dave Doran of NC State. They need to be more diligent, I think, in trying to find more national voters. And I know some national perspective voters that do a great job, that pay close attention to this stuff and know what they're talking about. But what you're talking about here, it feels like the pick to put on Marion Hampton. This is literally how this freaking came together. This is the top 3 rushers in the country this year. The top 3. Just the top 3. Ashton Jet in rushing yards, not touchdowns. Ashton Jetty, Caleb Johnson, or Marion Hampton. They literally just picked the top 3 guys based on who had the most amount of rushing yards. But we're all smart enough to know that Genty deserves to be on there. Caleb Johnson has been a really quality running back for Iowa, but his case is a little bit murky. More importantly, though, Marion Hampton is not playing on a good football team. He's played some good football. He does not have the same level of impact. They're averaging the same amount of yards per carry with 5.7. The only difference here is that Sampson has 1,307 yards and Hampton has 1,475 yards. That's the only difference.
I think James from Oregon should be on there. You right? Like I think should have been Genty, James, and Sampson. That's how I would have put mine.
I would have put RJ Harvey up there over Marion Hampton.
Oh, okay. Go RJ Harvey. The bottom line is, though, Joe, the point that we're trying to make for Dylan Sampson, like, Joe, this is something that when he's 50 years old and he's sitting in his office at home and his grandkids come over, maybe he'd be older than 50, but you get my point. And they walk up to him and they're like, Pawpaw, where's your Doak Walker Award finalist list or award? And he's like, well, some stupid son of a bitch in Arizona didn't vote for me.
Yeah.
Joe, I follow a lot of people that vote on these and are AP poll voters, and they put out their AP polls every week. And I'm like, I asked one of them. He had SMU in this top 6. And I'm like, are you dumb or just plain stupid?
I know of an AP voter that literally 1 week, and this wasn't immediately after NIU, that left Notre Dame off. And their response was, oops, I forgot.
Okay, I can't say anything because I accidentally forgot Tennessee.
Well, I don't forget. Samson's ridiculous. Yeah, and
we can fix what we're doing. They can't fix what they're doing.
I think Cam Ward not being a Maxwell finalist could be groveled about as well, but Dylan Gabriel has had a phenomenal stretch and they're undefeated. You got to have representation for an undefeated team. But Travis Hunter not being a
Jim
Thorpe Award finalist. And it's probably off of some dumbass logic by the voters of like, well, he's not doing it full time. It doesn't matter. He's one of the best corners in the country. He's probably the best.
He has the same amount of snaps as everybody else. So, by the way,
dumb.
He's playing less and has better statistics than most. That makes it even better.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the crazy part is he's doing all this with no breaks. Like, what?
Dude, the kid's probably going to win the Heisman or going to be really close to it. Unless, like Oregon, like Dylan Gabriel goes off or Cam Ward goes off in the final weekend. Something like that could happen and where he doesn't win it. But the bottom line is here, Joe, name a better player outside of quarterback than him. Name a better DB. I'll wait.
It's a good question.
It doesn't exist. So, Joe, we're broken as a sport. I'm sorry. We're broken.
A lot of fixing that needs to be done. A lot.
We need a commissioner. College football needs a commissioner. And you know what they need to do? Their first order of business is to hire the good people over Ruffino and Joe Show.
Exactly.
Do you think if we pushed Pate for him to be commissioner that he would hire us?
I don't know. That's a good question.
How about I think I might clip this and tag him in it and say, hey, we're looking for jobs. You got one?
We can't come off too desperate.
Oh, I'm super desperate, buddy. I want to be over the O-line snack room. That's what I want my job to be.
That's it. Okay. I'm sure Josh would be willing to give you that as long as there's
me and Sean Anderson could attack it.
Yeah.
Sean would eat all the snacks, though.
Probably.
All right. Y'all have a great and fantastic Thanksgiving. Until then, we'll see y'all on Sunday. Y'all have a good one. Peace.